All right, so my name is Laurin Bieker. I'm the account executive at Selman & Company. We work with the TRICARE Supplement for employees who have TRICARE through the carrier, the Hartford. I'm going to start by touching on to the TRICARE plans themselves, just so you can see how the supplement will work with those plans. So TRICARE is the health benefit program for our military community, National Guard, reservists, anyone overseas who participating on TRICARE, and even our retirees. So it's definitely helpful to have some of those out-of-pocket costs that are curved with a supplement similar to this, and we are going to review how these work with the TRICARE plans. So the differences between these three is we're going to focus more so on the retiree version, because your catastrophic cap, or most people would call it a maximum out-of-pocket benefit, is about $3,000. The main differences between these plans are whether or not you have an enrollment fee, the choice of your provider, location of service, and where you served actually too. So the two on the left we're going to focus on. Those ones are more if you've served active duty and you've retired after 20 years in the military. Obviously, retired reserves is if you retired from our reservists. So for Select, this is what TRICARE calls its base plan. It was formerly called TRICARE Standard Extra prior to 2018. So the catastrophic cap, as I mentioned, is $3,000. That's the maximum out-of-pocket benefit. It's built like a PPO, so it has in-network and out-of-network capabilities. It does give you the selection to use a civilian provider. It's available worldwide, no referrals. The structure of it, from a high-level standpoint, is if you're in-network, you have a copay. If you're out-of-network, you do have a 25% cost share and the deductible. With Prime, this is what TRICARE calls its premium plan. You do pay an annual enrollment fee for it, but it does have some network restrictions, but the costs are typically meant to be low, as long as you're using that Prime network. So I believe it's around $294 a year for an employee only or an individual, and for a family it's about $597 a year. And I've heard that in the past that does typically go up about 10% every year. So that's the option that you have to pay to be on the TRICARE plan. It does have some referrals. It is only available within certain areas of a military base, about 40 miles as far as a distance. It does have co-pays if you're using that Prime network. So if you're using a civilian network, and if you do have the option to use that, it's called Point of Service, POS. If you go outside that Prime network and choose to use a civilian provider, you would have that 50% cost share as well as the non-network deductible. Just so you know, excess charges are another word for balance billing, so there could be potential excess charges as well. Retired Reserves is built actually very similar to Select. It is a PPO style plan. Their catastrophic cap is a little bit higher, but they have a monthly enrollment fee for this plan. So with the exception of the enrollment fee, the plan itself is pretty much exactly the same. There's no referrals. It does allow you to use civilian doctors. In-network you pay copay, out-of-network you pay that 25% cost share and the excess charges and the deductible. So with the exception of the enrollment fee, it's very similar to Select. So I'm going to go ahead and jump down into what makes you eligible for a TRICARE supplement, keyword being retiree. So if you've served 20 years in the military or more, National Guard, reserve members, as long as you've served your 20 credible years, because that is intermittent for you, and you're eligible for the TRICARE Retired Reserves plan, you're eligible for the supplement. In most situations, if you're traveling overseas, TRICARE will be your primary because Medicare does not bill if you're over age 65. So my last two bullet points are focusing more so on Medicare attained age. So if you are residing overseas or you're traveling overseas, and normally you would have Medicare, your TRICARE is going to be your primary, and you can use the supplement as your secondary coverage to cover those out-of-pocket costs. The last one I don't really see a whole lot, but it's on here just in case. If you do live in the U.S. but you're ineligible for Medicare over age 65, as long as we receive the statement of disallowance from the SSA, you can still use a TRICARE supplement to cover your out-of-pocket costs. So I like to jump into dependent eligibility because it does work a little differently than civilian medical insurance. So we're going to start with just talking up until age 21. Your dependent children are covered at no additional cost. After 21, there's kind of a fork in the road. So if they are an unmarried dependent child who's a full-time student up until age 23, so 21 to 23, full-time student, they can continue their parents' TRICARE at no additional cost. If they're not a full-time student after 21, or they're above age 23 or not a full-time student, they would need to enroll in what's called TRICARE Young Adult Program. And it's essentially a paid plan to be on that TRICARE plan, just as if they were to pay for medical insurance through their job or on their own. This allows them to keep their parents' TRICARE at no additional cost up till age 26. Now, TRICARE will automatically terminate them on midnight of their 26th birthday. So the supplement does work with those same rules because you have to be on TRICARE in order to use the supplement. So on their 26th birthday and they're 26 in a day, if TRICARE drops them and they go see a doctor, there's no way for the supplement to work because the initial claim does have to be filed with TRICARE. So we do like to say that we actually run parallel to TRICARE. We don't cross over, so it is the responsibility of the TRICARE member to know if their TRICARE children are going to be covered under the plan if they're on TRICARE. So please know, if you are enrolling in the supplement, we are assuming that you know your dependent children are on TRICARE. If you remove them from your TRICARE plan, also let us know, because then we can save you a couple dollars and maybe drop from a family rate to an employee plus spouse rate if that were the case. So I'll get to some of those in just a moment. But moving on to the plan features, and this is what encompasses what the TRICARE supplement is. It works with all three of the TRICARE plans as a blended plan and a blended rate. And I'll get to what that means in just a minute. But there's no pre-existing condition clause, and what that means is if you are currently being treated for a medical condition, you're seeing a specialist, your coverage is going to begin immediately. So no waiting period, that's going to happen right away for you. It is guaranteed issue as long as you are on retiree TRICARE. It enables prime users to use civilian providers. As we talked about earlier, most prime users are kind of staying within that prime network, that referral network. Normally, if you go point of service, you have that 50% cost share. This is going to allow you to use those civilian providers without thinking twice. It does cover the cost shares, copays, excess charges that TRICARE leaves behind. Another big one is prescription copays. In 2018, TRICARE increased everybody's copays, even prescriptions. The catastrophic cap, which normally folks weren't meeting until the end of the year or even at all, people who are being seen by specialists and they are on certain non-formulary drugs or getting prescriptions on a regular basis, we've seen start to meet those catastrophic caps a lot sooner. So that's another big help because it will reimburse prescription copays at 100%. The continuation of coverage, if you happen to leave HSSI at any time, you can also take it with you when you leave. Obviously, when you become Medicare age, it's going to determine if you are eligible for Medicare or not. But obviously, if you take it with you, you can pay for it on your own as well. So I'm going to jump into how the claims work. So as I mentioned, it is a blended plan. Everyone does pay the same rate for the plan, but because they're different TRICARE plans, they all work differently. So the claims are also going to work a little differently. If you're on TRICARE Select, that was a plan, if you remember, does not have an enrollment fee. It typically had a copay in-network, and it had a cost share, excess charge, and deductible out-of-network. The supplement's going to reimburse all the copays for the in-network. It's going to also reimburse 100% of the cost share, excess charges, including 100% of that TRICARE Select deductible. TRICARE Prime, as we mentioned, it doesn't ever cover the enrollment fee because that's what they pay to be on TRICARE. But as far as your in-network, it's going to cover all of your copays. So that $3,000 catastrophic cap that we saw earlier does apply to the Prime network. It does not apply to point of service. So one thing to keep in mind, that if you have the supplement, normally you would be paying that 50% cost share. With the supplement, you're going to cover that 50% cost share up to the $7,500 mark. So because there's no catastrophic cap on point of service, we do cap out at the $7,500, but anything up until that point will be covered at 100% on that cost share side. The point of service deductible is also reimbursed at half. So if you're normally paying $300 or $600, it would drop down to $150 or $300. The TRICARE Retired Reserves, again, is built very similar to Select with the exception of that enrollment fee. So the supplement will never cover the enrollment fee, but it is going to reimburse all of the co-pays, the cost shares, excess charges, and 100% of that TRICARE Retired Reserves deductible. So this is usually the point where I usually get some questions. Well, I'm seeing a chiropractor. Will the supplement cover that? If the supplement works with TRICARE, if TRICARE touches that claim in any sort, whether they cover $1 or $2, the supplement is also going to reimburse based off of this structure. So if you are seeing a specialist that does take TRICARE or does accept TRICARE payment, the supplement will also work for that. The supplement will never replace TRICARE coverage. It does have to act as that secondary coverage. So as long as TRICARE does pay a portion of the fee, the supplement will reimburse based off of this structure. Okay? So this is going to be the monthly enrollment. For an employee only, it's $67.50 per month. Employee plus child or children, or the employee plus spouse rate is $132.50. Employee plus family is $178.50. In the state of Washington, they are a little different rates because the state of Washington did make a mandated rate change back in 2016, so those rates are a little bit lower. Keep in mind that there is a Selman & Company deductible. It's $100 for an individual and $200 for a family of 2 or more. So I'm going to jump back to this next slide where I kind of did an overall...
I just have one.
Sure.
Ms. Carol, I just have one question, just out of curiosity.
Yes.
Why are the rates in Washington less?
My idea, and they don't really tell you about that, but my reasoning, and I think, is because Prime is actually a very heavily utilized plan within the state of Washington. So from what I've heard, the state of Washington mandated the rate change because they did want their individuals to have access to the supplement, but they didn't want them paying more than what they were already paying. So the supplement doesn't reimburse for that enrollment fee, and I think that they were trying to consider the enrollment fee as part of the cost. So I think that's why it is, but we don't actually know.
It was just more curiosity than anything else.
Yep. I would be interested in knowing, but we can't seem to get a straight answer from them either. That's kind of what I seem to think, but that would make sense because there's not really a need for standard. There's a ton of military bases in that area, so Prime's a little more available to them. So that's probably what I would say.
Okay.
So as I mentioned, I took some of those costs and put them into a little chart here for you to see what the cost would be. If you had TRICARE Select, and this was that plan that did not have an enrollment fee, your max out of pocket or your catastrophic cap would be $3,000. So when we're looking at an employee-only cost, the annual cost of the supplement is going to be $810 for the premium. The supplement deductible is $100. That's $910 that an employee can budget for their healthcare expenses for the rest of the year. So they don't have to make up that net between the $3,000 and $910. That's exactly what they're going to pay. Everything in regards to reimbursement is going to be collected. So that's what they can accumulate for their cost for the year. For an employee plus a family rate, again, the annual cost $21.42. The supplement deductible is $200. It gives you $23.42, and you don't have to make up the net for the rest of that time. Things to keep in mind, especially with family. You have kids going away to college. They can take their TRICARE supplement ID card, their TRICARE card. Let's just say Joe Smith is a dependent child playing football, breaks his ankle, and goes to see a doctor close to school instead of having to be dragged back home. I say dragged back home because in college I was dragged back home a couple times. But anyway, going back to the doctors back home isn't always fun, and it's nice to be seen kind of where the incident might occur, or no matter how many kids you happen to have, they can all use that supplement, and that kind of covers the amount of children regardless of how many children you have. So things to just keep in mind for budgeting for out-of-pocket costs. It's definitely helpful, especially for those traveling kids as well. So we're going to jump into some open enrollment information. We're already in the middle of open enrollment beginning on August 2nd. We're closing out on August 15th. Effective date for the coverage is going to be September 1st. So I do have the link below that you can click to enroll in the TRICARE supplement. One thing to just keep in mind, the coverage is going to be effective as of September 1st, but you won't have your packets by September 1st. They're probably going to come to the middle of September because we're cutting close to our time frame to get those enrollments in. When you receive your welcome packet, you're going to get a welcome letter. You're going to receive your TRICARE ID cards. Now, the TRICARE ID cards are going to have one name on them, and that is going to be the plan sponsor, but you can use that for your dependent children. Okay. There will also be some information in there on how to file a claim. If you choose to file the claim on your own, you can do so, or you can have your provider file the claim on your behalf. As I mentioned, there is a continuation of coverage, so if you leave HSSI, you can take it with you. The rate and the benefit will stay the same. The only difference is you'll switch from a pre-tax payroll deducted benefit to a post-tax direct bill. This is just some helpful information I like to include in here just for some last-minute measures. TRICARE specific information. Again, this is TRICARE, not Selman & Company's TRICARE Supplement. If you don't know what TRICARE plan you're on, you can also call DEERS, the Defense Enrollment Eligibility Reporting System. This is also a great place to update address changes, phone number changes, new children, recent divorces, recent marriages. I say that is probably the most crucial because I can't tell you how many times I speak to folks who still have their ex-wife on there from 5 years ago when they divorced them, and unfortunately their new wife is not reaping the amazing benefits of TRICARE. So that's just an example of what TRICARE has in mind for you, and unfortunately if you don't have that information up to date, they're not going to provide you with the best benefits for you and for your family. So definitely take advantage of that DEERS phone number. Filing claims with TRICARE, you can visit the mytricare.com website. If you have questions on the differences between the TRICARE plans, you can also visit tricare.mil. I find that website to be very helpful for myself as well because you can actually do side-by-side visions of TRICARE Prime, TRICARE Select, and any other plan options that you have questions on. So when you do enroll in the TRICARE Supplement, you're going to have access to our member services team. The phone number is right here, the 1-800-638-2610, option 1. That's going to get you to our client services team that can answer any questions for you. And also feel free to email them at memberservices@selmanandco.com. So I'm going to go ahead and take a minute, open it up to see if there were any other questions during our presentation.
Laurin, this is Nicole, and I have a couple of questions that I've sort of collected. I'm hoping maybe we can kick it off with that and see if anyone else has any questions to add. Sure. The first one is, a lot of our employees are military spouses. Can you tell me if a military spouse employee is eligible to enroll in the supplement if her spouse, I mean the retired spouse obviously, is not an employee? Does it have to be the TRICARE sponsor that enrolls in the supplement, or can anyone who is a TRICARE beneficiary enroll in the supplement?
Absolutely anybody who is a TRICARE beneficiary. So we come across this quite a bit where the spouse is actually the employee and opting out of the insurance because they have TRICARE through their spouse. You can enroll the spouse and the dependent children and even the non-employee, the sponsor, in the TRICARE supplement as a family plan.
Terrific. Okay, and then another question that has come up with the claims, you did mention that either the employee can submit a claim directly to Selman for the supplement coverage, or the insurer can, or the provider can submit that claim. Can you give us any perspective on what is most common? I've heard some stories of some employees, not our employees, but with the people with the supplement having to pay the claim up front out of pocket and then submit it for reimbursement later, but that may just be a provider thing. So I don't know if you have any perspective on that.
Absolutely. So about 95% of the providers that we work with do file the claims on their own. And there's probably about 5% of the providers that we work with that just choose to have it on a reimbursement basis. So it is mainly provider focused. If the provider they're going with is a new provider and we don't work with them yet and they would like to do the claims on their behalf of their insureds, we're happy to set up that connection to help them with that as well.
Terrific. Thank you. I don't have any other questions. I don't know if anyone else on the call has any questions to add.
I'm good.
Perfect.
Yeah, Laura, this is Steve. I want to thank you for doing this. I mean, this was very straightforward, very easy to understand and so forth, and I appreciate the brief.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much, and we'll make sure to get this recording over to you. That way the employees can hear it as well. All right.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Laurin.
No problem. I'm going to go ahead and stop this recording.
Okay. Can we get a hard copy of this also?